slide just outlining the audience that we're targeting. Today in the webinar, what we want to do is go through some information around Dundas Dashboard. So why would you be interested in this? Well, if you're someone who needs to improve some performance at your organization, you're tracking different metrics and you want to see how the metrics themselves relate to performance or how to improve these different items, then you would care about what we have to talk about today. If you're someone who needs to build dashboards, someone has tasked you or you've kind of taken it on yourself to say we need to improve reporting. We want to make sure that we have visibility into the data that we have and be able to report that up the chain, down the chain, depends on who needs it, then you'll be interested in what we have to say today as well. Finally, if you have a business problem to solve, very often there are issues that you run into, visibility issues, communication issues. A lot of these can be solved as well using dashboards, and we're going to talk a little bit about how that can be done. So if you're in any of these buckets, you definitely want to listen to what we want to say about today. To get to that end or accomplish that, what we want to go over, just a high level outlining for you. To start off, we're going to go into some dashboard views, some finished dashboards that Dundas has created to walk you through what an end user could see from a dashboard perspective, things that they can interact with, information that they can gather, and how they can further dig down into the data to get more analysis. So we're going to start with more of an end user perspective and show you some things that we've done before so that you get an idea of what the end product, the end goal can be. We're also going to tap into more of a mobile explorer experience. So if you want to target folks that are on the run, on the go, more for tablet devices or smartphones, there's also a solution for that as well. And we'll talk a little bit about that. Once we've gone over more of the high-level overview information from an end-user side, we're going to dig down and go into more the technical side. So this is more for the folks, I guess that want to know about how the bells and whistles behind the scenes works. We're going to go into the development workflow and walk through the process of how Dundas itself also day-to-day works through building dashboards for our clients as well. And then from there, we'll go into more extensibility, how we've taken the platform that we have in Dundas Dashboard and extended it to really help solve client issues and client problems from a business perspective, using the technology and using our data visualization best practices. So to start, what we're going to do is take a look at just basically a page on our website. This is actually a gallery page showing you different dashboard examples. And we're going to walk through some of these examples here on the website as well. Of course, there are a lot of examples here, sample dashboards that we've developed using the Dundas Dashboard platform. So I do encourage you to take a look at the gallery and maybe even let us know the ones that you like or you feel fit in with your business scenarios. The one I want to start with is one called Retail Operations. This is sitting right here. And basically, to set the context behind this dashboard, it's made for a grocery store chain. So think of it as a business with different locations. They have different metrics that they want to track, and how these different metrics vary by location, and whether these locations are hitting the target or if there's an average benchmark that you want to compare that against. So this grocery store chain is called Green Bean Foods. And how we visualize the information on this dashboard is starting off with basically a retail scorecard. So scorecarding is very data-dense information. It helps you see a lot of details in a very small area. In this case, we've also used very typical data visualization dashboard practices in the reds, ambers, and greens that we're using to highlight the different cells. So these tell you right off the bat at a glance whether a metric that you're wanting to track, whether it's revenue, cost, earnings, expenses, are these doing well, not doing so well against the targets that you're setting. And if you do notice that some of these are in the red, there's different things that you can do with it. There's actions that you can drive from there. For example, at the bottom, we have a financial summary chart. In this case, we're comparing 2 different years of data to see what that particular metric we're looking at the location we care about is how it's performing, and whether it's doing better than last year, doing worse. What we can do with this dashboard is to utilize the scorecard to actually drive the metric view within the financial summary. So that allows you to very easily drill down into the trend information, and it's interactive. So at the touch of a mouse, you'll be able to get the details that you need for the various locations that are within your purview. You can, of course, also use the built-in controls to do that. It's just more for analysis in terms of looking at what the pieces are and what they mean to you. Now, if you do notice that there are actionable items that you want to take from the data, there's something that you need to have someone else check, you want to ask a question, you may notice that there's these little yellow, or sorry, orange, getting my colors mixed up, the little red triangles on the top right of the cell. What this is basically user-driven comments. So what you can do there is actually add in your own comments or respond to someone else's comments to say, this is a point that I want to highlight and bring attention to. I have a question. Can someone answer that question? And you can go in as a user and respond and be able to track that conversation in a comments area here on the right-hand side. So this shows you basically a culmination of all the different conversations, all the different comments that have been added to this current dashboard. And it shows the conversation style, so you know exactly when those comments went in. It's all time-stamped, and who made those comments as well. And that way you have that action register on the dashboard to tell you these are the things that we're doing, these are the items that we're tracking, and if there's any changes, why the items have changed. Of course, within the dashboard area, you might have very limited real estate depending on what area you're targeting to deploy this to. So we could also have items that are hidden behind masks, interactions, things that users can drill down into, click on to expose. In this case, we have a map that actually lays out all the different locations in a geographical representation. And this map actually shows you more information than just the locations themselves. It ties in with, again, those metrics and the different metrics against your thresholds. So we have different bubbles of varying sizes to indicate the values of these metrics. And if I want to focus in on one of these, let's say Santa Barbara, click on that. It'll go in and show you that metric and that location within the financial summary as well. So things are linked together within the dashboard to be able to tell the full story, walking through the type of logic, the type of questions that you'll be asking when you're looking at this dashboard. At the top here, you'll notice also that we're not just looking at one perspective. This, of course, is the executive summary. This is a very high-level view of overall the most important metrics. At the same time, there might be things that are more specific to a certain location that you care about as well. We can drill down using built-in navigation, tabs, buttons, links, what have you, to other perspectives that tell you a different story at a different level. So here we've divided the dashboard area into 4 different quadrants to highlight other metrics. Earnings by department, so this is within a particular location. You can also look at the earnings by employee, some trend information, and also compare different values against one another and their own benchmarks as well. By visualizing the data against a context, so we have a national average behind the scenes, we can tell through the red and the green bars which ones are hitting target and which ones are falling below. You can also hover over that particular element and see whether they're hitting target on a consistent basis, or if it's something that just happens once in a while, or if it's an anomaly. So it gives you more detail behind the scenes than just what the initial data shows you. Again, tying in with the interactive element, we can use this list of locations and actually use it to drill down into that particular location. So now we're looking at individual locations compared against the last one you selected. How is one doing versus the next? These same interactions are available through either drop-down lists at the top of the dashboard or different buttons that pop up to let you select date ranges. It depends on what makes the most sense and how your users are expecting to use these different dashboards. So it's just a matter of customizing the view to cater to those use cases and those users. Keep in mind, what's being displayed right now is not a template necessarily, so it is fully customizable, the platform, in terms of catering to your story. So it doesn't have to be 4 quadrants with these specific charts and you're forcing your data into these areas. It's more to identify what is the best way to show your data and what is the best way to tell your story so that your users get the most out of the dashboard. Just jumping right now to the third tab in this series. We're looking at customer experience. We have a scorecard linked together with a chart this time, and we're actually looking at different values. Again, matching it against a threshold, in this case 80%. Red, ambers, and greens, very common to highlight what items are doing well, not doing so well against those benchmarks. We can also select a particular metric. This one's not doing so well. Compare it against the other ones that are available in the list. And this is available for our different locations as well. So common filters allow the user to have consistency between the different dashboards so they know where to go to find the different pieces that they need. And this, of course, can be deployed to your desktops, to different portals, depending on how you want your users to be able to access this information as well. So this is one type of performance dashboard that we looked at right now. The next one I want to go over with you guys is one called the call center dashboard. Basically, this one is a little bit different. It doesn't have as much interactivity in the sense that users are clicking all over the place on the dashboard itself. It's more towards data visualization best practices, trying to convey what you need to know in the view that you're getting right off the bat. So the call center one focuses on scorecarding with spark lines. So we're tracking the different calls that are coming into the call center and how the folks that are on these phones are handling those calls. Are they on there for a long time? Are they on there for resolving the issues very, very quickly? Checking whether these different metrics that we're looking at is happening on a consistent basis, or whether it's something that's just an anomaly at the end and having a spike at the end. So it's very data dense in the sense that it shows you all the metrics that you care about and visualize in a way that tells you the story right away. For example, on the bottom left here, we have a chart showing you basically comparing the values coming in with SLAs. Are performing to the standard that we're expecting. And we're highlighting areas where we're not doing so well across the different areas of support. So in order to improve those areas, we can focus in on whether it's a certain time frame. Maybe we'll increase our staffing in those areas in order to answer the phones faster. So different things from the dashboard that will tell you right off the bat, and you know what the next action step is to take from there. Currently, we're looking at 1 day. There's also a date picker to look at the day before, the day before that. So it is interactive to the point where you can get snapshots of your information right off the bat and be able to see how this could be conveyed as well. Now, let's say you have an existing portal. Maybe you want to deploy these dashboards, not necessarily through a web interface, but you want to see something in SharePoint, and you're running a SharePoint portal. The same dashboards as well can be deployed through SharePoint, no problem. Let me show you our SharePoint area. I think we're running an older version of SharePoint on ours, but up to 2013 is fine as well. What you're going to get basically is a web part that goes into SharePoint, very easily to install, and embedded into that SharePoint site is the full dashboard. And it's fully functional, fully interactive. Users also have at the top available options to them for exporting the information that they're seeing into different formats like PDF and Excel. They can also print directly from the dashboard interface as well. But what we're seeing here is just a high-level executive dashboard metric showing financial values. Again, the layout, the template, the theme, look and feel, all that's customizable. These are just different ways that we've presented data before, but it doesn't have to be necessarily the way that you present your data. In this case, we have an interactive calendar control that lets you select a different year or different month, and the data on the dashboard will reflect that selection. There's also these commentaries, again, just to highlight different points. If there's a policy change and you suddenly experience a spike or a dip in the data, highlight that. Let them know, or the folks that are looking at the dashboard know that this is what happened, and that drop or that spike is not something out of the ordinary because it was expected. Having this online as well will keep everyone on the same version of the truth. So there's no need to worry about confusion, local copies of Excel files being stored, and everyone interpreting the data differently. Here we're seeing the same thing. We're getting the same information. If something is not clear, you can add a comment, add an annotation, and be able to communicate that as well. So it makes the dashboard a lot more collaborative. And the interactions on the dashboard, of course, will give you more detail. It just depends on what needs to be conveyed to the end user to make the right decisions. So everything we've seen so far has been sort of a big dashboard, targeted more for, I guess, desktop usage when you're looking at something from your workstation or from your laptop, for example. Let's say you want to target folks that are on the go. You want to be able to look at your dashboards on the run, maybe on an iPad or a tablet device. How would you do that? We do have a mobile story. In fact, if you want to visit mobile.dundas.com, this is available online right now. You arrive at this landing page that shows you our HTML5 mobile demo. Basically, different ways to deploy mobile dashboards to your users. What's coming up right now is our Mobile Explorer. This is a set of tiles that's customized on a per-user basis. So users get to select their own tiles and choose which tiles they want to see on the dashboard. They can also further customize that homepage through a very interactive way of managing what they want to see. Each of the pieces is just a dashboard element that's showing you the content that you want to see right now. And you can also get more detail here by drilling down into the element and linking to another dashboard behind the scenes. Oh, while that's running, in the top right, you'll see also some elements that we can use to drive this. Let me just go back to the previous screen. One thing I do want to show you from here actually is the fact that these elements can be utilized to highlight different pieces. So if I wanted to, for example, move this around, things will actually reshuffle to accommodate a different dimension, different setup. What that means is if you're using a tablet device and you want to change orientation from landscape to portrait, you can very easily do that, and the items on the dashboard or the home screen will actually reorganize to fit with what you're looking for. So here we're drilling down into more detail, just seeing how the dashboard behind the scenes will show up, and we can also add this particular element to our home page if we want to see it. There's a built-in export as well. You can export to different formats through a wizard, so very easily utilize that. If you wanted to see all the different dashboards inside, there's a menu that will let you browse through all the dashboards that are available. Each one can also be pinned to your homepage, to your Mobile Explorer. So we can add that to our homepage if it's something we care about and have an easy access through a mobile interface to be able to get to that information. Now, if your users maybe are more interested in the deep dive analytics, they want to see information around the raw data. I want to be able to go in and do data discovery, find out what exactly it is that is in the available information and want to dive deeper into the details. There is another dashboard type that's available. It's called the analytical dashboard. Again, this is just a gallery page on our website. What the analytical dashboard gives you is a way to dive into your OLAP data. So it does require a special data source, something like analysis services, for example, that is cube-based. But then your users will have access to essentially a means of browsing through the cube. The name of this dashboard is an analytical dashboard because it does provide some ad hoc analysis capabilities to your end user through drag and drop. And I'll show you what that looks like. We're representing the data here through a chart, just a visual representation that's interactive. I can drill down into these different areas. The data behind the scenes is coming from Microsoft. It's actually an AdventureWorks cube. The information or the sample data in there follows or centers around bike sales and bike accessories, so you might see a lot of the information that is related to that. We can switch between a visual view and a tabular view. If you're, depending on how you best consume your information, you want to see the patterns, or do you want to see the actual numbers with markers indicating high or low or medium. Again, very interactive, getting to drill into the data itself. So very raw levels. The real power of this analytical dashboard comes when the user wants to do their own analysis. I'm going to clear out this report, so clear out what I'm seeing now, and let the user define on the fly what is it they care about. Do I want to look at reseller order count, gross profit, sales amount, for example? And I want to break these down by the different nodes that I have, different dimensions, by date. See, I have all my dates showed up here. I can also look at it by geography. Just by dragging and dropping in these elements, I get a cross tab that is fully interactive, and I can drill down into these areas and highlight what it is I want to see. Depending on what your items are, there may or may not be metrics associated with them or data for those elements. So it really depends on the amount of information you have. It looks like we don't have data for 03 or 02, so I can go in and edit and just remove those from the list maybe. So it gives you full control over what it is that you're seeing. From this perspective, you can also export out the data to Excel as well. The idea behind this is more data discovery, self-service, so users can get to the data directly and be able to see what's going on behind the scenes. All these different modes that we're looking at are just different ways of presenting information to your end users so that it's easy to access, fast access, and everyone gets what they need in a very quick and easy way. So everything we've seen so far basically has been targeted for the end user, someone who's going to come in and look at the finished product. What is it that they want to be able to access, interface, and how the user experience would be like going through the finished dashboard itself. What we want to go through now, we're going to move into more of a technical discussion, talk about what Dundas does day to day to put these dashboards together. When we work through our services team and build dashboards for our clients, what is it that we will go through? So I want to show you a little bit about the platform and how that looks. So this is actually the Dundas Dashboard development interface. We're going to go into the developer view now. The application itself is installed on a web server that's running IIS. So this is running off of my own machine, and it has IIS on it. In the background, we're also using SQL Server as a database. Right now, I'm logged in as an admin user, as a developer, to go through and create content. And you'll see there's a workflow right on the main screen that walks you through step by step how the process goes to build out these dashboards. The first 3 steps deal more heavily with your data. You can't really get away from data when you're dealing with dashboards. So we do have ways to connect, ways to massage, and ways to define what is it that you care about measuring from your big repositories of data behind the scenes. Once we've gone through those 3 steps, the design step is actually probably the most fun and most interactive for the developer. Let's start here so we can set the context and show you what we're getting towards. What we're going to do here is create a new dashboard, a brand new one. And you'll see a canvas show up in the middle of your screen. This is what every dashboard starts off as. There's templates that we can use to set backgrounds, navigation, color schemes, things like that. But in essence, it's a blank canvas, and you can populate that with whatever you want. On the left-hand side is an area called the toolbox. What we have in here is a list of KPIs, different metrics or key performance indicators that are defined from the first 3 steps. These are data definitions of what you care about measuring. I have some pre-built ones right here. I'm just going to drag and drop these elements, these metrics, onto my canvas and let them visualize on the dashboard. So I can control what my element looks like, how big, how small, where I want to put it, or how many there are. So it depends on what makes sense for your dashboard and how you want to visualize items. You have full control over that. There's also no limit to the number of elements you can have on a dashboard, although best practices says at a certain point, you might be inundating your user with too much information. We're showing the data information here right now in 2 area charts. You'll see them. One is blue, one's green. That's not the only way to represent data. There's lots of different combinations, different techniques that we use day to day to highlight different trends, highlight outliers, things that require a little more analysis behind the scenes to tell you here is what we care about measuring. Is it a delta between the 2? Is it a percentage? Or is it the actual value that you care about? The decision making in that process will make the dashboard more effective if you know what you care about. Within the platform, there's a library of controls that you can use to visualize that data and choose the optimal way to present that information. Different types of charts, bars, lines, pies, areas, lots of different ways and combinations of these techniques to help facilitate the conveying of the information to your end user. There's also other controls like gauges. So if you want to show single values, targets, things like that. Tables, obviously, can't get away from data grids and scorecards on a dashboard, maps, legends, state indicators, traffic lights, lots of different ways to combine on your dashboard to really help tell the story that you're looking for. And it is just a drag and drop mode from the toolbox into these containers. If you want to further customize what you're seeing here, let's say I want to change the color scheme, I want to update the combinations of the controls, I can do that on the right-hand side through a properties panel. If you're a developer, this will seem very familiar. It's following the same methodology. I can open up a property or an attribute called series. Inside here are my 2 areas. I can swap the area to a different type, so it doesn't have to necessarily be the same type within the chip. I can also change the pre-built skins, so update the look and feel without much work at all, or even change the color scheme. Now there's lots of options here. It's I've been told that it's flexible to the point where it could be dangerous. So if you don't have necessarily a graphic designer in-house, you might end up with something that looks like this. It's fine. Dundas can help with the graphic design portion as well, if that's something you're interested in. There's also built-in themes that have been vetted by our graphic artists. So these themes are available out of the box natively, and you can use them to stylize your dashboard in some of these built color schemes. When you pick a theme, everything on the dashboard will adopt that theme and show you the content within the colors of that theme. So it saves me from having to go in and stylize every control, every element on my dashboard with the same color scheme. These are pre-built. You can, of course, create your own custom ones as well. Obviously, there's a lot more customization, a lot more flexibility in defining or updating what's on the dashboard. But I do want to really quickly go through the rest of the process to show you how we get to that point. When we do that drag and drop, what is it that we're actually pulling in? To get there, we need to go through the first 3 steps. So this will get probably a little more technical, just to let you know. On the first step, we're actually connecting to your data. So all this information on the dashboard comes from somewhere. We need to tell dashboard where the data source is coming from. And there's different ways to identify what you're connecting to, whether it's database-oriented, whether it's a flat file like CSVs or Excel spreadsheets. It could be SharePoint sources. There's also generic data connections available for data sources that aren't listed here. I'm just going to do very quickly, connect to my own local instance of a database. This is a sample one showing some sample data surrounding anything running behind the scenes. Some of the sample data around revenue and some product information. Probably because my password's not right. There we go. Save it, and I've created a connection to this database. So what we have in this database are just some tables, a collection of different calculations and views that give us back data that we can use on the dashboard. I'm going to rename this real quick, call it demonstration. That's really step 1. As many data connections as you want, whether it's coming from a database system or otherwise, it's going to tell the dashboard where to go to fetch that data. From there, there is a step for you to massage that information. If your data coming in is completely clean, that makes it really easy. We're just going to go and pull the information from that data as is. So we call it a standard virtual table. If you have existing queries that you've written before, you can also plug that into dashboard verbatim and just use that within the application. There's also a means for executing stored procedures, functions, and tabular structures if those structures are already defined in your database. We're going to go through the first one, or the standard one real quick, to show you from our list of discovered structures in the database what that looks like. I'm going to pull one of my revenue value data sets and show you what that looks like. So here we have some data coming in from the repository, the database, just showing you some information around revenue, a timestamp, and some identifier, some product ID. This could be a category, it could be a location, it could be a team. You can have as many columns or fields as you like. Depends on how deep your data goes. In my sample information here, it's very simple, but keep it that way. That's really the middle step, the semantic layer. We can, of course, go in and do some massaging, change the values, do some calculations, things that might not be necessarily available in your data that we can add in there as well. Once that step has been defined, basically we're going to be able to take the data and define a metric from it. What is it that you care about measuring? We call these the KPIs, key performance indicators. These are the definitions of the data that go on the dashboard. That's what we're dragging and dropping. We go through a wizard to define these KPIs. We start with this new virtual table that we just created. In that virtual table, basically are a series of values. We have a revenue value that we can pull in. We can also count up how many records there are coming in from that particular data. We can look at grouping of the data. Do we want to see it as a trend? Do we want to see it broken down by our IDs, our products? Let's choose both. What you get at the end of the day is a summary of the data presented in a way that is representative of what you're looking for. So here we're trying to get a trend of the revenue. On each month, we're getting a total sum of the revenue And in fact, behind the scenes, there's actually 3 records being sold in February and 4 records being sold in March. But we're rolling those up and seeing a total summation, a high-level value of that. We can also take a bigger roll-up and maybe roll the data up into a yearly perspective, summarize it by year, summarize it by quarter, month, week. Depends on what makes the most sense for you guys. But be able to drill down into that information, very valuable. So you can actually see the information coming in and how that total looks like on a per year basis, per quarter basis. Could also respect your fiscal years as well. What we're seeing here is the final step before we get back to the dashboard design again. So we would define a list or a library of these metrics, the KPIs that you care about most to measure, and we'll add those to the dashboard. So I'm going to rename this to our KPI. Go back to the home screen, and we've come full circle. We started at the designer step, going through and dragging and dropping elements onto a canvas. But we also looked at how we get the data there. Now I'm going to go back to the same dashboard we were looking at earlier, the one with our theme applied, and we'll utilize that KPI that we just created, adding that to the dashboard itself. I think I may have to clear out some of the existing content to make room. There's our new KPI. Drag that in. You'll see that it does respect the theme that we selected. And when I actually run this particular dashboard, you'll see that it shows up as the data that we had there. So it is quite easy to go through the process of defining what you need to see and how you need to see it on the dashboard. To further extend on what we can do on the dashboard itself, it's very flexible. There's lots of ways for you to introduce interactions for end users to interface with the dashboard. Things like parameters. We call these parameters in the sense that they're variable values that a user can change, like a drop-down list, like a calendar control, whatever it is that you want to give the user control over on the dashboard, you can make into a parameter, something like a drop-down list, for example, that lets them switch between different granularity views, different levels of detail. Just need to drag and drop that onto the canvas and show you real quick the effect. I have my year selected, so I have 4 years of data. If I go down to the month level, you'll see we're reflecting now on the month totals as opposed to the yearly totals. So users do have the ability to go in and change what that looks like. Depends on what you grant them in terms of access. You can also create from the dashboard hoverovers, drill downs, pop-ups that show you more information, more detail. So if I go through and create a pop-up, this pop-up can go to another dashboard altogether. It doesn't have to be showing our current dashboard. So I'm going to show you one that you've already seen before when we looked at the SharePoint example. This pop-up is triggered on a click. If I click on one of these bars, you'll see a pop-up window show up, and it links to the other dashboard. So it depends on what you want to see and how you want to get there. All those tools are built in for you to define those interactions for your users. For those really technically inclined, what's happening behind the scenes is some C# code being run. So you can customize this to taste and add in your own interactions as well. In fact, there is a built-in intelligent autocomplete system. For example, if I have an item called bar chart 1 on my dashboard, there's a number of different properties, classes, methods that are associated with that item. I can change that at runtime via the user interaction. So I'm going to change it so that bar chart 1 disappears when I click on the bar. I may also introduce another little snippet just for myself. So now when we look at the same dashboard, it's going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to click on this bar. The bar will disappear, and you also get this little nice message. That can trigger a whole list of different interactions, things that are more interesting or even more functional for your end user, being able to see different pop-ups, different masks, calculations, new visuals, also alerting them, maybe changing the color of an element when it surpasses a certain value. So there's a lot of business logic that can be tied into the dashboard, built through either the workflow or through the scripting engine as well. Now we've gone through basically, the entire process of the workflow development. What I want to show you right now are different ways that Dundas has extended upon the platform to really help clients tell their story. Through our services department, we do build dashboards for clients. So if you're looking for not just a tool to build dashboards with, but an end-to-end solution created for you, we'll work with you to develop that and map to what it is that you need to solve your business story. What I'm opening up here is a platform that we've created within Dundas Dashboard to highlight examples that we've created for clients, things that have been asked for, business issues that we've solved using the platform. One of these is something that I think everyone is familiar with. It's called regression. Oops, let me go back. Imagine you have data that looks like this. It's a trend over time. It's got little tiny peaks and valleys. Very common in terms of just dispersion over a period. You know there's a general fit for what that data looks like. You can see the line, but you don't know what that is. Behind the scenes, we can add in the interactions, add in the calculations to run the regression. You can choose what your confidence intervals are, your alphas are, and what this gives you is your line of best fit, essentially, and what that line of best fit represents, and the statistical analysis behind the scenes to give you the information that you want. Very often you want an R-square valued, so you can calculate that from the available data set and change the range of what that data looks like, or just output it, or remove the regression lines as well. So it is very dynamic and interactive for the user to get to what they need. Maybe they just want to see this data. Maybe they want the actual statistical information. You can have that run just off the bat without having to actually go through the click. We're just showing you the delta between the two. If you have something running on a big screen, a dashboard is designed the way we call it a kiosk type display, where it's on a big monitor on a wall and it's cycling through a series of different dashboards. We have that as well. We call it a slideshow, where you're actually seeing a series of different views loaded automatically. These dashboards are designed with a little less interactivity because people aren't going up to interface with them on drop-downs or anything like that. But if you have a touch screen, you can also make them interactive. Here we're looking at plant production, the different stations of the plant and whether they're working well or being a little bit behind schedule. And then it'll cycle through to the next dashboard, looking at production history over those different loads as well. And it'll cycle through each different set of plant locations or stations on its own over time. So this could be something that's very useful for you guys as well, depending on the scenario you're looking to deploy this to for your end users. Now, if you're thinking, maybe, okay, I can see the data. That's great. I have that data already available. What happens if I want to be able to input something in to see what happens, sort of in a what-if analysis scenario? We've created many examples that surround what-if analysis. These are some of them. One is, in particular, is called CO2 impact. Think of a fleet of vehicles. If you increase the number of items in the fleet or number of vehicles in the fleet, what happens to the output? If you increase fuel efficiency or decrease it, fuel costs, what are the different things you're measuring, and how do these values impact those different outputs? So very classically, sliders are a great way to allow users to input values. As you can see, as I move my slider up and down, only one of the gauges is impacted by this value. But what happens if I change the efficiency of the vehicles? Or the fuel price. If fuel prices keep going up, what happens there? Annual mileage, if I'm delivering items farther and farther. So in this case, the metrics might not necessarily tie in with your exact business scenario, but it's the same logic. If you have an input, what would the output be? And you can see in the background, we've noted the different zones, red, amber, green, very typical in terms of the data itself. But it's a way to highlight and understand better what you can change proactively to adjust for these scenarios. So now we've gone through and looked at some of the examples that we've created and how Dundas has extended upon the platform to really solve business scenarios. And we've come basically to the conclusion of the webinar. Just to wrap things up for you guys, we go back to our slide here. We've gone through and looked at our dashboard views. So went over a few examples of dashboards. Also looked at the mobile story, mobile.dundas.com, if you guys feel like visiting that on your iPad or your tablet device. Walked through the workflow on a more technical side and showed you the basically nuts and bolts behind the scenes of Dundas Dashboard, and also the extended examples of what Dundas has done with that platform to really solve business problems. At the end of the day, it is a platform for creating custom dashboards. So depending on what you guys are needing on your end, looking for, if it is just a platform to build your own dashboards with, that's great. We do offer training on the platform on how to use it, best practices on how to best convey that information in the optimal way to your end users. But you can also work with Dundas in a end-to-end capacity as well. If you're looking just for finished dashboards delivered to you, we do have a services team that's more than happy to have a discussion with you to find out what your requirements are and how to meet them through the dashboard tool.